This is Unit 2, Lesson 3, Parameterized Constructors. Lesson objectives. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to write a parameterized constructor to specify formal parameters and identify the correct constructor being called based on the constructor signature. Question of the day. How can I create objects with specific values for its instance variable? Okay, when you call a constructor, what happens is inside the constructor, the values for each of the private instance variables are set. After you set those values, you have actually set the state of the variable. A parameterized constructor is a constructor that actually has parameters, that's parameterized, and those values will be used to set the values for the instance variables. When you have two or more constructors, what you have done is you have overloaded the constructor. That means that you have two constructors of the same name with different parameters or different number of parameters. This is an example of overloaded constructors. You have one constructor with no parameters and another constructor with 4 parameters. The parts of a parameterized constructor are obviously the access specifier, the name of the constructor, and then each of the parameters. Notice that each of them, even if they're the same type, have to have their data type specified along with their variable name. These are int x, int y, string dir, string paint, or int paint are what are called local variables. They are only available inside of the constructor. Once you exit the constructor, these values are what we call garbage collected. That means they're no longer available to be used. Now, you need to have your parameters in a specified order. They have to match up with your constructor. So, constructor was int, string, int. So that works. If you put the string in front rather than as the third parameter, you would get an error if you tried to compile the program. Now, these values, except for the string, these numbers are actually copies sent to the variables. So if it's an integer, a double, or a boolean, copies are sent. This is called call by value, which means that they aren't changed. Now, strings are a little different. They are not called by value. They are passed by their reference. So 2 goes with X, 3 goes with Y, north is going to be assigned to dir, and 4 is going to be assigned to paint. Okay, today you learned about writing a parameterized constructor to specify formal parameters, how to identify the correct constructor being called based on the constructor signature. How can I create objects with specific values for its instance variable? The answer to that is use parameters. Okay, key vocabulary, state. That's the attributes of an object that are represented by its instance variables. Parameterized constructor, a constructor that has a specific number of arguments to be passed to assign values to an object's instance variable. Overloading, defining two or more constructors or methods. Now, they didn't talk about methods, but this also applies to methods with the same name but different signatures. In other words, the same name but different parameters. Formal parameter, the value to be passed to a constructor or method. Local variable, a variable that's declared and accessible within a specific block of code. So if you define a variable as a parameter to a constructor, that's local. Once you exit the constructor, that variable is gone. And that's also considered scope. They don't talk about scope here, but that's what they're talking about when they say local variable. Actual parameter, the value to assign to the formal parameter, call by value, copy the value of the actual parameter to the constructor's formal parameter. And I said that's only for primitives. Okay, what will you be doing in lesson 3? Well, for level 1, you're going to predict the output of the program. Yes, it says here there are no wrong answers, but there are what I call non-answers, such as telling me IDK, or it won't run, or it runs. No, you need to be a little more specific. Investigate and modify. That will be levels 2 through 4. Make changes as prompted and observe the results. Lesson 5. You're going to check for understanding. I'm sorry, level 5. Check for understanding. Level 6, write a parameterized constructor in a class. Level 7, write multiple parameterized constructors in a class. So you're going to be practicing this. And that is what you're going to be doing for lesson 3. Please work on it during class.